Okay, so welcome. My name is Arid and I'm the Group Product Manager for Manage, and I have with me Nick. Nick, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm a designer in Manage as well. Currently working on the Optimize group and also the Workspaces group.
Yeah, so today we kind of just wanted to walk back and forth about some of the things that we already have supported in Optimize, and namely value stream analytics, and kind of walk through what could potentially be future visions. We'll discuss some things just by talking, and some will show mockups. So with that, I'll share my screen and kind of let's discuss what we have supported today. So I'm hopefully sharing the right screen. And the first thing that I noticed when I go into analytics, I use GitLab org project, but it doesn't really matter which project we select, is that under analytics, the default that's opened up is value stream, but there's a ton of different analytics that we have. As a first-time user, I'm not sure exactly what I want to look at in terms of analytics. Nick, let's discuss that a little bit. We have the value stream as the default, but it really currently isn't connected to other analytics.
Correct, yeah. And you also have value stream as the default, and not many people may know what a value stream is. So you're sort of taken to this analytics page instantly without sort of having too much contract text of what this value stream is, what it's useful for, and how it connects to GitLab and the rest of the product. So you're sort of presented with a lot of information that could definitely be quite confusing and overwhelming.
Yeah, so, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go on. But we'd like to obviously make that a little bit more interesting or easier to onboard and understand contextually. So I agree. We need to somehow connect this page to the rest of the product, specifically the analytics pages as well, to make it feel a little bit more cohesive and also show how the dots connect between certain types of analytics.
Yeah. So to start off, we started with project level analytics, and when we continue talking, we'll also talk about group level analytics and the differences between them. But let's start with value stream analytics. So value stream analytics comes with out of the box default value stream. This is the one. So basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, the value stream is built on top of labels, and based on the label that the issue /MR, but let's start with issue, has that's going to indicate which stream they're in, correct?
Yeah, there's start and stop events. Some of those are based on labels, and some of those are based on specific actions, like when an issue is created or when an issue is closed, that sort of stuff. Okay.
So issue here shows me, this should show me the average of the entire stream, correct?
No, this is quite a strange, it's from the point where an issue is created to when an issue is scheduled.
Okay. So it takes us a minute to schedule an issue. That sounds a little bit fishy, but okay, let's say that that's correct. And when you say schedule, it means it has a milestone, right?
I believe so. Let me get the docs page up for again, this shows like you don't understand what the metrics are, and it can be quite confusing. Yeah.
So what I like about this view while you pull up the docs is it lets me kind of understand what my flow is comprised of, which is, issue plan, code, test, review, and staging. What's really interesting is that it doesn't show production, which maybe we need to change as a default, because I think that's the most interesting part. And also, like, we have the part where issues are open, but not necessarily closed. And then we have a really nice view of very general metrics, some DORA, some non-DORA. So we have lead time or cycle time, lead time for changes, number of new issues in this, whatever the date range is, number of commits, number of deployment frequencies, which is really interesting. Then depending on where I am in the value stream, right now I'm an issue, it'll give me a list of issues that are part of the stream. So, and it can be sorted, which I think is pretty new. So that's helpful. And we have pages next in preview. So what I'll see here is the list of the issues. So we get the title, when it was open and so on, and how long it took for it to get out of whatever state this is. And I think you mentioned scheduling. Maybe it's something else because it looks like some of them are 0 seconds.
Yeah, when a milestone is added. So if you create an issue and you instantly put a milestone on there, then it's going to be like 0 seconds. So that's why it's quite a strange.
And it says milestone none, so I'm not sure. We should double check this behavior.
Yep, it doesn't account for repeated times that something's been within a stage as well. So if someone put the milestone on automatically and then removed the milestone, it would be counted in that stage, and then you wouldn't see it appear in this stage again if they assigned a milestone again after that.
Yeah, that makes sense, but I still think we need to double check because it doesn't look like this was ever assigned a milestone. It's just created 5 hours ago. Maybe it's from the time that you create the issue until you apply. Like save it.
Or it says by adding to a milestone or adding it to an issue board.
Okay, so that makes sense. So if it's adding it to an issue board, that means we got some kind of label on it. And so we have bug board, so that makes sense. So it was assigned either a label or a milestone. Cool. So that's issue. Then we have plan. You can see this is 15 hours. I believe plan is probably when you get assigned a milestone.
From the point of a milestone to first commit with a related MR.
Awesome. That's actually pretty good from an issue to be created in 15 hours until the first commit. I think that's pretty impressive. Go GitLab. Okay, then we have coding time. Is this till the commit is assigned to a merge request?
Correct. Yeah, time to create a merge request. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. We have here some tooltips that kind of give us hints, and which is really helpful. Then we have the testing phase, which in theory is the one that usually takes the longest. Review makes sense also until something goes through code review, and then until it gets approved and goes to staging. So this is pretty neat. This is our stream. And it gives us a lot of data, like just looking at it from a glance, you already see like this is probably a problematic area that needs attention. There was a previous video that you shared with me, which I'll add to as a link to this video, where you discussed real-time analytics. So let's talk a little bit about real-time analytics. Right now, this is not in real time, so you can see the stream, but there's no indication that something is kind of going off the rails at this moment. So I want to pick your brain a little bit about how you envision that happening. So maybe it's in the group level where you see the average time of your value stream, but were you imagining that if something like, if a specific issue takes me out of that average, I'm going to get a notification, or what was the thinking there?
Yeah, so this is using value stream for sort of two different contexts. The sort of context this is initially focused on was to reflect on some of the trends of how long your value stream has been taken and what you can do to like sort of change the process in order to reduce the time it takes for your value stream in total. And then using value stream in real time is more focused on helping to remove blockers and bottlenecks and stuff in real time so you can sort of continue that flow within your value stream. Potentially two different personas required for that. But yeah, in order to work this sort of stuff in real time, we'd need new visual indicators and new ways of visualizing the interface to sort of highlight these things that are potentially outliers or like taking longer than the average time, whatever sort of threshold we want to set there. And also, yeah, potentially alerting through the use of to-dos or email notifications, things like that. So, for instance, if a issue has been in the plan stage for much longer than the average time, say twice the amount, which is say 5 days is the usual, and then 10 days is what's going on. A product manager or someone who is maybe subscribed to this particular value stream will get a notification and say, this issue is taking a while, maybe you can action it.
Okay, so let's talk about MVC for a minute. I think the vision is great because anything we can do to help our users in real time is much better than, 2 weeks along the way where there really isn't much to do. So this is a great example. We have here plan, the average time is 15 hours, and we have here one, for example, that's 7 days, which obviously is a problem. Let's assume that twice as much is something that causes the alert. I'm assuming that we could configure this at some point, even though we can decide that the default is twice as long. And so visually, we would have something showing that this is a problem, like maybe it's red, maybe it's on the top, maybe it has some kind of icon or symbol. And then, right, you add it to a to-do and a notification, or maybe even a Slack message with integration and something like that.
Correct. And that's like sort of from the side of like the analytics page, but we could also consider potentially embedding this analytics or these insights into the actual issues themselves. So not just the manager or director who's using this would see it, but also the developer who's seeing it as well, or the product manager.
Yeah, I like that. It's very similar to our missed SLO. So if a bug has a due date of X and you're past due, then on the issue itself, it's like red, and it shows you that it requires attention.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So that's really neat. We didn't make a lot of progress in real-time analytics. Another thing that I want to talk about, and maybe also talk about the gap, is something that I heard from analysts, which is value stream is great because it gives you observability, but really you want to know about those outliers and also those comparisons. So this is a value stream for a specific project, but it doesn't tell me how I'm doing versus another project, or maybe that is more suitable for the group level. We can think about that. But the idea is I have some kind of average cadence. Doesn't matter if we're talking about the value stream itself or one of these metrics. And this specific project, didn't meet the average or didn't meet our goal. We can also talk about average versus goal. Is that something that we have thought about as well?
Yeah, so if you think about it, there's the potential that we want to be comparing different projects against each other, or different groups against one another. But a project or a group may have also individual value streams within them that we'd want to be comparing as well. So those are other things that we'd want to compare. And the general types of metrics that you'd want to compare against actually come from the Accelerate book, so the DORA4 metrics. And those are typically good indicators to show how a particular project or group is doing. So yeah, ideally, we'd be able to see the projects or groups against each other within a table at least, and sort of see how the metrics fare against one another to get a good indication of how these value streams are performing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll talk about DORA4 also and how to connect that as well. Another kind of very general question that I have, and I'm not sure if I saw documentation about that, but let's say I'm looking at this issue list here, and I have a confidential issue. In terms of permissions, will that show up? Will that not show up? Does it depend who is logging into the system?
You would have to ask the engineering team there. I'm not 100% certain, but I think we do take into account what what the permissions and what roles can see.
Okay. Also, in terms of who creates the value stream, do we have differences in terms of the permissions in that sense, or can anyone create their own? It's personal, or is it in a team view?
I believe anyone can create their own, but you can only create your own value streams at the group level as opposed to the project level.
Okay. So funny you should say group level. Let's talk a little bit about group level value stream. So the group level value stream kind of looks a little bit different than what we were looking at the project level. First of all, you can see we have a bit of a different value stream here. My first question is why? Then we have these charts that are very specific to the groups and don't appear in the project level. And that's basically it. I mean, everything else is the same. We have kind of the same kind of metrics. We can filter by projects. We can filter by the day. That's kind of the same. There's these two buttons, which are a little bit different. So can you walk me through this page as well?
Sure. So the top two buttons are the different saved value streams that you have at the group level now. And saving value streams effectively allows you to change the different stages that you see in that chevron or tab across the top. So right now, customer test is a specific value stream. And if you click the edit button, we can actually dive in and see how they've constructed this particular value stream. So we've got a number of the default value stream stages, which are currently existing, and you could hide those if you like. You can scroll down and we see that there's a unique QA stage here. And that stage is basically when a QA label is applied and when a QA label is removed. And in between that, we define that time as, or that amount of time as the QA stage.
Cool.
So there's now the ability to take the default value stream that's been provided by GitLab in the GitLab flow, and then start to configure it to be something which is more specific for your type of developer workflow.
Great. Silly question that I have here. We had really nice tooltips that explain to us on the default streams what this means. When I create my own, does it also kind of give me the option to create my own tooltip?
No, it doesn't. That's a very good idea. Maybe we should create an issue for that.
Okay, so I have a to-do from this meeting. Okay, so we kind of already saw how we can create our own custom value stream or customize the default ones. And as you can see here, there's a lot. So is there a limitation on the amount of value streams that I can create?
I'm not certain. I'm sure there must be, but I'm not sure.
Okay, well, basically, this gives me a lot of flexibility and kind of lets any organization create their own value stream, which is really, really powerful. These are static, right? These don't change, and we can't hide them or add or whatever, right?
Correct. Yeah, they're currently static. We have had lots of customer requests to potentially change the types of metrics that you want to be seeing within a value stream, but we haven't got around to that sort of flexibility or configurability.
Okay, another question in terms of, I'm sure it's possible, but if you've heard of customer requests, since we do have a lot of different analytics available at GitLab, does it make sense for us to allow the ones that we already support to allow users to add or remove them from this view?
Yeah, I'd say it potentially makes sense to do that based on what they're trying to achieve with their value stream as well. That would make sense.
Okay, because a lot of the things that I don't see here, but I know that we support, but we're not showing it specifically on the value stream is, how's my burn down? How's my burn down versus other groups and projects? How long does it take for people to pick up issues? How long does it take for me to fix bugs or hot fixes or whatever? And we do have this data in other analytics in the product. So it may make sense, at least in MVC, to show what we already support without allowing, fully customizable analytics. So let's talk about the
Definitely.
graphs. Can you kind of walk me through this?
Well, this first chart is a bit of a mess, and it has been for a while. Initially, it was supposed to be a scatter plot, and then you'd see an average line going through it, and potentially some bands showing the percentile as well. And that sort of visualization would effectively give you the average lead time of your value stream, and how different items or issues are falling with either within or outside that particular lead time. The performance of this chart was abysmal. So it was shifted in the MVC to sort of account for less data and fewer data points. And that's why it sort of looks like this. And in my opinion, there's an issue out there currently, but this, until we can get the performance right, should be changed to a line chart and potentially show things superimposed on it. So having the lead time and the cycle time both within the same chart would be potentially quite useful, or maybe the lead time for changes over time.
Yeah, so right now I see that it takes all stages into account, and it kind of shows me the average, right? So this is
correct.
This is a 30-day interval, and it shows me the daily. This is actually pretty cool. Like, if we know that the average is a day, then everything above it is like green, great, right?
Yeah.
When we created this chart, was there thinking about adding annotations like this was the release day, this was a code freeze, and whatnot, to kind of help explain what we're seeing in the chart?
Yeah, having that sort of context would be super useful, as well as being able to see the potential issues that are actually contributing to it as well. So you could click through to those outliers and understand the context. And that's why value stream and GitLab is actually such a interesting value proposition, is that you can actually click through and see all the underlying issues and MRs and data that's actually contributing to how your value stream is performing. So not just the quantitative side, but also the qualitative side of comments and all that sort of stuff. But I agree, simple annotations on this chart saying we released on this day, or there is, a crash on this day, or whatever it may have been super useful. And another sort of slight usability fix that would be interesting for this chart is you see that you can select the different stages to see how those add up to do days to completion. We could actually simplify this chart dramatically by removing that drop down and then taking the specific stages or chart for those stages and putting it within the tab bar above. So when you click on plan, you just get the chart for plan. When you click on code, you just get the chart for code. And this total overview stage would give you the chart just for the entire value stream.
Yeah, that makes sense. Great, and this chart is really interesting. It's one that customers really like, especially product managers, which kind of shows me what the team was working on in a given day. So if we as an organization decide that we want to spend 40% of our time just on performance improvements, this can really validate if this was the case or not.
Correct. This is a chart which is effectively depicting one of the key flow metrics, which is flow distribution, and it shows you the different types of work items that are coming through your work stream. So as you said, if you are focusing on improving or having a certain percentage for the number of bugs that you're trying to fix, as opposed to new features or vulnerabilities or whatever it may be, you can track that over time and ensure that that's what's happening.
And basically I can select whatever labels that I want, correct? To show?
Yeah.
And this is really
Yes.
cool because it lets me toggle between issues and merge requests. Silly question, why don't we show both? Why do we need to toggle between them? Like, why don't we show both of them? They both seem really interesting.
Yeah, seeing them both superimposed would be really nice. Performance has prevented that in the past. But that's also something that would be super cool to see next to each other, because obviously issues in merge requests, there's a relationship there. So seeing them in context would be really cool.
Cool. So we talked about project level and group level analytics. We by chance mentioned DORA metrics. So the DORA metrics currently appear under CI/CD analytics. It doesn't really make sense to be there, but hey, that's what that's what we have at the moment. So at the moment, we support deployment frequency and lead time metrics only. And assuming that we do want to connect these metrics to value stream, or at least have them linked from one another from the tile view, does it matter that this kind of shows that by default 1 week and the others show by default 30 days? Is that something that we should think about maybe changing or not? Because it kind of, when you drill down, it doesn't really show that same view.
Yeah, having some consistency between the scopes would be useful. So whether we handle that by something like when moving from the value stream page, the MVC could just be take us to the last month tab here. That would be a quick way of going about it. But then we could potentially evaluate how we handle scopes and pass labels and stuff over within filters in the long run.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to value stream for a minute, because lead time for changes, deployment frequency, and the other two metrics that we want to add, which is mean time to restore and time to, don't remember. They all talk about specifically the production environment. When we look at the value stream tiles, when we look at lead time, it says created to close, but it doesn't necessarily talk about the production environment specifically. So also in terms of deployment. So I wonder if we really do need to keep this consistency, because it looks like they're both kind of talking about different things, and I wouldn't want to confuse the user. So maybe it does make sense to have them separate.
Yeah, and then also there's the fact that not all customers may have their environment or named as production as well. So being able to have a little bit more flexibility on what specific it is thing that is that they're actually going to deploy to. But that's
so
that
we solved. We introduced a new keyword called deployment tier in the YAML file, which you can call your production environment whatever you want. You can have multiple production environments, and this shows aggregated data. So that problem solved. But going back to here, I just want to make sure that we have consistency, because this does and total number of deployments to production. So hopefully they're both sitting on the same API.
Yeah, we want consistent metrics, and value stream will effectively be the top level view that you can then use to click into more detailed specialized views. So it's like a T-shaped model where value stream tells you what's going on in your value stream, and then you can click into specific analytics like this CI/CD analytics to understand a little bit more detail how or why that's happening.
Well, just from clicking, it does look okay. Like I didn't check the math, but the deployment frequency was like 67 point something, and you can see that here we have 116 and we have 18, so it probably is okay, the number. Maybe just to be nice, we should put the average here on the CI/CD page as well, so they just speak in the same language.
Exactly, and having other metrics like just the quantity of deploys as well, just to provide that additional context, so you don't need to try and figure it out from the chart by using integrations or differentiation. I haven't done maths in a while.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also saw that you opened an issue for that, so we should be good to go. So let's talk about DevOps reports. So DevOps adoption, pretty new chart that we added at the group level, and is also kind of a standalone, but talks together with the value stream. We should talk about maybe potentially connecting those. So DevOps adoption shows you selected features from different areas in the product. We started with DevSecOps. Obviously, there's a lot more that we can add here. We talked about adding compliance frameworks, adding issues, adding review apps, and so on and so forth. There's a ton of different adding protect features. So there's a lot of things that are still missing, but as an MVC, what this shows us is, what are the different groups adopting at the group level? And what we can see here is that different subgroups within the group behave a little bit differently. Some have like 100% of all dev functionality, like GitLab services, but for example, growth isn't using any of the sec features. Now, this could be okay, and it could be maybe not okay. I think that it would be really powerful to kind of connect this, saying, well, GitLab services adopted quite a bit of the different functionality. How does this affect my value stream? Like maybe even have the value stream average displayed here and say, wow, this one is doing really well. What functionality are they using, and what can we learn from them, or something like that. But what have you been hearing or seeing or thinking about?
Correct. Yeah. So there's an interesting relationship between DevOps adoption and value stream insights that we keep on hearing, and basically the two are very much related. And value stream and the way your value stream is configured and the purpose of your value stream very much determines the types of features that you actually want to be adopting. So not all value streams are the same, and the purpose or the outcomes that the value streams are trying to achieve are actually wildly different. So not everything's maybe going to require ops features, not everything's going to maybe require security features. So sometimes when comparing these different groups across here, it's not apples and apples, it's apples and oranges that you're comparing. So having a little bit more context of what the value stream is doing, how it's performing, can give a bit more insight as to what's being adopted. But then conversely, maybe a value stream is underperforming, and you can look at similar value streams and see, oh, what have they adopted, and how can we then bring that into our process in order to make our value stream more efficient. So that's sort of the initial purpose of this.
Interesting. And so you mentioned something that some may be adopting features and some may not, and that may be okay. So let's take compliance, for example, even though we don't support it yet. But let's say I have a project that is fully compliant with compliance, and it's using compliance frameworks and so on. And there may be a project or a group of projects that isn't, and maybe that's okay because it's internal and you don't have to be compliant. Is there a way that we can kind of add notes here saying, well, it's okay that they didn't adopt this because, just like having someone acknowledge the problem or the lack of their problem?
Yeah, so before we were thinking about annotations, we were actually thinking about the ability to hide different features that may not be relevant for your value stream. And that could maybe give you us like a better indication of like what's been adopted for within a particular group. So for example, if a larger group says, we are right now not too concerned with adding compliance features, then the other subgroups may not have to take that into account, and that will sort of reflect in the percentages that are shown. So annotations we haven't discussed so much, but yeah, the potential for configuring this interface slightly more to be more relevant for what you're trying to achieve, we've talked about, and that would be by creating effectively a settings page for this DevOps adoption.
That makes sense. Would it make sense that, I've been talking about to a lot of customers, both in terms of compliance and optimize because of my role, but a lot of times they decide that they want to set a company policy. For example, they want to make sure that every pipeline runs secure features. And here at a glance, you can see that a lot of the projects do not. So assuming that my organization decided this would be a policy, a security policy or compliance policy, and these are not being compliant, could we maybe add something that would either add a notification or maybe even open an incident so that someone knows that action needs to be taken, similar to when a vulnerability is found or something like that? Is that something we thought about?
For sure. I mean, just to give a little bit more context, the initial purpose or job to be done that we're focusing on with this MVC was helping sort of DevOps champions or GitLab champions to justify renewal. So we've really optimized this interface to sort of show what features are currently being used and how are they being used, and then we can start to prioritize the next jobs to be done that we want to help to accomplish. So if that happens to be sort of compliance related stuff, there's plenty of routes that we can go with here, and I think there's a lot of different jobs that we can serve with this interface.
Cool. So we talked about what we have today in the product. With the time left, I would like to talk about maybe future roadmap. And for that, I kind of used this issue, but maybe you want to walk through the Figma file better than I do because this is yours. So I'll stop sharing my screen if you want to share it.
Sure, I can share.
Do you need the link to the issue?
No, I've got Figma up. Can you see?
Yep.
This is the wrong one. Oh man, let me go back and find it. Sorry. Stop sharing for a second, and then I'll share my entire screen. Yeah, I'll just go through this. So with regards to the vision, we wanted to sort of add a little bit more functionality and start to differentiate between those different jobs to be done that I was talking about before. So there's the job to be done, which is more about helping to identify outlier work items and unblock those in real time. There's the job to be done, which is basically reflecting on your value stream and seeing the trends that have happened over the last few months to see whether you've been improving and why, and then also starting to compare value streams and sort of seeing what other teams are doing in order to improve the way that they're performing as a team. So this first view is very much focused on the deliver job to be done, helping to unblock stuff in real time. And this is starting to provide a more condensed view, which is giving you an overview of all the items that are currently within your value stream and what stages that they're in. It's sort of roughly analogous to a board, but it tries to get everything in a more of a condensed view. And then it starts to highlight particular items that are outliers. And we can define outliers as stuff that's falling outside a particular set percentile, and then from there we can provide some sort of annotation of this is currently blocked, and this is why. Maybe you can click through it and then like comment on the issue or see what's actually going on. So really easy view to see what's happening within your particular value stream, see which items are outliers, and then take an action on those particular items as well. And having the ability to visualize these items or group these items in different ways. So that tasks by type chart that we were talking about before, talking about that flow distribution of, do I want to have more things which are bugs? Do I want to have more things which are features versus vulnerabilities? Starting to represent those different types of issues that may be in here by categorizing them maybe with an icon, like this is a feature versus this is a, I think that was tech debt, this is vulnerability, this is a bug. So those different types of things you can sort of see, and that again may give you additional insight as to what's actually coming through my value stream. I'll pause there. Any questions on this deliver type screen?
Two questions. So one, I really like the view. I have a question about the representation of the type because theoretically, I can create any type I want. We saw that you can choose your own labels. And so I don't know if that would correlate to all the different types of labels that users customize. So I wonder if to simplify that, we could just, assign a label a color or just use the label color and call it an MVC and see if that's good enough.
Well, yeah, I mean, ideally these types need to be mutually exclusive. Maybe we could wait until issue types are a specific feature within issues, and then we can work off the back of those, and that would make it easier than labels, which are a little bit more loosey-goosey with regards to the type of data that they'll be showing.
Yeah, the second thing that it's not really a question, it's more of a comment. When I look at this view, it looks very similar to the environment dashboard. I don't know if you've seen that, but it kind of shows that same view where you can see a lot of different boxes. And at least in the environment view, you can see at a glance, like if something is red or green or needs attention or not. I wonder if that's something that we can adopt here.
Yeah, for sure. So right now, this was sort of stripped of any color because it was more of a wireframe, but yeah, introducing different visual cues and colors to highlight things that need attention, I think is a great idea.
Cool. So after I see the value stream, which is very similar to what we saw in the product today, I see on the top, there's two other tabs. There's optimize and compare. Can you kind of talk to those?
Sure. So optimize is the job where you are reflecting and seeing the general trends that are happening for this particular value stream over time. And we can break that down in a number of ways. So we can see the DORA metrics here. We can see the key metrics, which sort of show you how effective your value stream is. And then we can also see the flow metrics as well. So the item type distribution and seeing how that's performing over time. The average velocity, or how quickly you're closing down issues per iteration, the lead time, the amount of work in progress as well, which would be your flow load, and then flow efficiency as well. And this would start to take into account how efficient your value stream is. So how often are you having to pause and wait for someone else to do something? Or yeah, how long is your work item blocked and so on, and calculated the time between active versus inactive or blocked.
Yeah, this is really cool. I do want to note something that I heard from an analyst last week, which is that, again, visually, this is awesome. But when I look at this, and I see there's an option to see full report, but when I look at this, I don't know if it's okay or not. Like, I'm looking at the DORA4 metrics. Maybe this is good, maybe this isn't good. Like I see there's a triangle with the trend. Is this trend like versus the average versus last month versus another group? Maybe I have, so in the settings goals that I want to achieve, and maybe that's a problem. Like, how do you see that in terms of when I look at this and I know that something needs attention?
Yeah, again, visual cues highlighting when something is an outlier, falling outside a percentile, being able to hover over these metrics as well and see different things like median or mean, or seeing other trends that are related to this metric as well. So providing initially sort of visual cues that something's interesting here and maybe you should look at it, and then allowing users to investigate that further.
Cool. And what would the compare tab show me?
So yeah, we talked about before that different value streams would perform differently based on the sort of stuff that they're adopting and what they're actually trying to achieve. But it's really useful to see a comparison of value streams side by side to see how they're performing and what you could potentially learn from other value streams as well. Why are they doing it that way? How are they so successful? Or maybe there's something that could be improved about them. So this starts to show you some of the key metrics for how the value stream is performing. These could be flow metrics, which are shown here, but they could be DORA metrics. There's basically just showing different metrics side by side for each value stream. And then there's the ability to click in to see how the different sort of stages that they're leveraging from the DevOps lifecycle are also performing as well. So if you want to compare how effectively a value stream is planning stuff, you could click on the plan tab and you'd have more related things to planning, such as velocity, burn down, whatever that may be.
I think this one is really, really powerful and exactly what people are looking for. A general question that I have is this showing me my value streams of my organization, or is it also teaching me like how others are performing? So in GitLab.com, we have the advantage of having all this data. Of course, we want to anonymize it and we don't want to show, you know, the issues linked to a private project or something like that. But maybe, you know, if there's a really good performer, we can at least show the labels that that value stream is built upon or something like that. Is that something that we also incorporated here?
Yeah, so if you think about like the accelerate metrics, DORA metrics, they sort of categorize performers into elite, high, moderate, all that sort of stuff. So you could have that internally to compare, but having that from anonymized or seeing anonymized organizations and value streams and comparing to them would also be really useful. And we could potentially even create a better comparison by looking at the types of things that these value streams are trying to achieve and the types of things that they're adopting. So we can sort of compare like for like a lot more as well.
Awesome. So with the very few minutes that we have left, there's one general question I kind of wanted to ask. We talked about real-time value stream, and we talked about observability, and we talked about comparison. Something that I was thinking about when I had planned the DORA4 metrics in GitLab was in product guidance. And so we maybe touched upon it now if we have those high level, high performers that we can kind of see what value streams they're using. But we also have a ton of features in GitLab that not all users are aware about. And so I'll give you an example. Mean time to restore. Let's say I'm a low performer in mean time to restore. I was thinking we could also kind of tell the user, well, hey, it takes you a long time to restore production. Maybe you want to try auto rollback, which is a feature that we have in GitLab, which maybe someone doesn't know about. Where would you think that kind of thing would fit into the value stream metrics? Because we have so much data, so much analytics, and so many features that it's just really hard to keep track.
Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff that we could definitely recommend, and value stream is an area where we could recommend new features and ways of approaching stuff. If you think about it, there's a little bit of inefficiency within GitLab where you need to configure your projects and groups in a particular way. So you're effectively configuring your workflows, and then your team works in these workflows. And then we have some analytics which show you how your teams work in these workflows. And you need to configure these analytics in order to reflect back to make sure that they're aligning with the configurations that you initially made for your workflows. So it would be great if we are able to bring more value stream thinking into the initial configuration of projects and groups and visualize that in a certain way. So you're building up your workflows and your value streams in a certain way. And then through that process, we can automatically configure the analytics that we need to reflect back. And having that loop of configure, do the work, and then reflect on the work, this continuous improvement type cycle, it means that we can sort of reflect back and say, oh, maybe you should introduce this. We can see that you've configured your work stream in this way. We think that you could dramatically reduce your lead time by adopting this feature. Let's go back into this configure value stream type screen where we can add that new workflow and figure out whether that's going to help you out.
Cool. Is there anything that you want to add that we didn't capture in our discussion today?
I think GitLab has a really interesting position in the market with regards to value stream analytics. I mean, we are a value stream delivery platform, and we provide so many features and so many services that it's really interesting that we can have analytics which are actually like attached to this platform and are embedded within the product as well. So I think there's a lot of room for value stream thinking from the analytical perspective and within these dashboards, but I think we could also start to spread a little bit of these value stream insights in context of the actual product as well, to help not just directors and managers who are interested in value stream analytics, but also developers and the individual contributors as well.
Great. I'm really excited to see the entire optimized vision come to play. Thank you for your time today, Nick.
Thank you. All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.